The phone camera caught everything, Tyler's hand crushing the hearing aid under his sneaker, the crack echoing across the empty courtyard, while Marcus's mouth opened in a silent scream he couldn't even hear himself make. Kaylee laughed into her live stream, 50,000 followers watching a 12-year-old boy sink to his knees, hands frantically searching concrete for the shattered pieces of technology that connected him to sound. "Look at him crawl," Tyler said, and Josh's thumb hit the record button again. "Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel and stay with us until the very end of this story. Comment below with your city so we can see how far this story travels. Now let's continue." Marcus Chen felt the vibration before he understood what it meant. Footsteps behind him, too many, too fast. He turned from his locker just as Tyler Brennan's shoulder slammed into his, sending his backpack crashing to the hallway floor. Books scattered. Students flowed around them like water around stones, nobody stopping, nobody looking. "Watch where you're going, deaf boy," Tyler said, his mouth forming words Marcus had learned to read from cruel lips. Marcus's hands moved quickly, signing an apology, but Tyler grabbed his wrists mid-gesture. "Don't do that weird hand shit at me. Use your words." Marcus pulled back, his heart hammering against his ribs. He reached for his communication tablet, but Josh Martinez was faster, snatching it from the falling backpack. "Oh man, what's this? His little computer, because he can't talk like a normal person." Kaylee Morrison appeared beside them, phone already raised, already recording. Her lips moved rapidly. Marcus caught fragments. "My followers are gonna love," and "wait until you see." Marcus's throat tightened. He'd been at Jefferson Middle School for 3 months, and every day had been a careful navigation of silence, of reading lips, and body language of trying to be invisible. His hearing aids helped sophisticated devices that his mother's physician salary had stretched to afford, but they couldn't protect him from this. Tyler pushed him again, harder this time, and Marcus stumbled backward into the lockers. The metal crash reverberated through his bones. He felt it more than heard it. "Please," Marcus mouthed, his voice coming out strangled and unclear the way it always did when he tried to speak without being able to monitor his own volume or tone. "Please what?" Tyler mimicked his voice, dropping into a mocking pitch that Marcus couldn't hear, but could see in the exaggerated movement of his jaw. "Speak up, we can't hear you." Josh laughed, the vibration of it visible in his chest. "That's ironic, bro. He can't hear us either." Kaylee zoomed her camera closer to Marcus's face. "Guys, we're live right now. Say hi to my followers. We've got Jefferson Middle's special ed star trying to communicate." Marcus's hands trembled as he tried to sign again, but Tyler slapped them down. "I said stop with the hand dancing." The morning bell must have rung. Marcus felt the vibration pattern through the floor that signaled class time. Students began disappearing into classrooms, and Marcus realized with growing panic that the hallway was emptying. Tyler, Josh, and Kaylee moved closer, forming a tight semicircle that blocked his path. Tyler grabbed the front of Marcus's shirt. His mouth formed words slowly, deliberately. "You don't belong here." Marcus shook his head, trying to pull away, but Tyler's grip tightened. Josh moved behind him, cutting off retreat. Kaylee circled, phone extended, narrating for her invisible audience. "Should we take him outside?" Josh asked, his lips easy to read against his dark skin. "There's nobody in the courtyard during first period." Marcus's stomach dropped. He reached for his hearing aids, trying to adjust them, trying to catch any sound that might tell him if teachers were nearby, if anyone was coming, but Tyler noticed the movement. "What are those? Some kind of Bluetooth?" Tyler's fingers reached toward Marcus's ear. Marcus jerked away violently, his back hitting the lockers again. His hearing aids were everything: his connection to the world, to music, to his mother's voice, to the memory of his father's laugh before deployment. Losing them even temporarily meant complete silence, complete isolation. But Tyler was stronger and meaner and surrounded by accomplices. His hand shot out and ripped the hearing aid from Marcus's right ear. The world cut in half. Marcus had learned to compensate with two aids, his brain building a map of sound from both sides. But with only one, everything became distorted and distant. He reached desperately for the device, but Tyler held it high, examining it like a trophy. "Dude, this thing is expensive," Josh said, his lips moving, but Marcus barely catching the words with only partial hearing. "My cousin has one. They're like thousands of dollars." "Thousands of dollars so he can pretend to be normal," Tyler said, and tossed the hearing aid to Kaylee. She caught it, held it up to her camera. "Look at this, guys. This is what they give special needs kids so they can—" She paused, reading comments streaming across her screen. "Oh, someone in the chat says I should try it on. Should I—" Marcus lunged forward, his voice cracking out. "No, please." His own voice sounded wrong, too loud in his one working ear, but he couldn't control it. Tyler laughed and pushed him back again. "Oh, now you can talk, say something else. Come on, let's hear your voice." Marcus's eyes burned. He'd spent years in speech therapy after losing his hearing at 7 years of learning to shape words he couldn't hear himself, forming years of other kids mocking the flat, unusual tone that deaf speakers often had. He'd learned to stay quiet, to use sign language, and written notes to protect himself from this exact humiliation. But Tyler wasn't giving him a choice. "Speak," Tyler demanded, his face close enough that Marcus could smell his breakfast. "Or we drop your expensive equipment." Kaylee held the hearing aid over the concrete floor, her eyebrows raised in question toward her phone camera playing to her audience.
Marcus's working hearing aid picked up vibrations, a door opening somewhere, adult voices maybe, but too distant to help. His hands moved through sign language frantically. "Please, give it back. I need it. Please." "What's he doing?" Josh asked. "It's like he's having a seizure with his hands." "It's sign language, idiot," Kaylee said, still filming. "My mom works with disabled kids. That's how deaf people talk."
"Well, we're not deaf," Tyler said, grabbing Marcus's hands again and forcing them down to his sides. "So stop it, and use your actual voice like everyone else." Marcus felt tears starting hot and shameful, and that made everything worse because crying made it harder to breathe harder, to think harder, to do anything except feel the crushing weight of being different, being vulnerable, being alone in a silent world that didn't want to understand. "Take him outside," Tyler said, and Josh and Kaylee each grabbed one of Marcus's arms. They dragged him toward the courtyard doors, and Marcus couldn't cry out because his voice would sound wrong. Couldn't struggle effectively because he couldn't hear them coming from different angles, couldn't do anything except stumble between them as they hauled him into the bright October sunlight. The courtyard was empty, surrounded by building walls on 3 sides open to the sky. Marcus's feet scraped against concrete as they forced him to the center, pushing him down to sit on a low bench. Kaylee immediately positioned herself for the best camera angle. Her livestream counter-climbing Marcus could see the numbers even through his blurred vision. 200 viewers. 300. 500. "Okay, everyone's watching now," Kaylee announced, her lips moving rapidly. "We've got the deaf kid who thinks he's too good to talk to anyone. Tyler's gonna teach him some communication skills." Tyler stood over Marcus, blocking the sun, his shadow falling across Marcus's face like a threat. "I'm gonna ask you questions, and you're gonna answer out loud. If you use your hands, I break your other hearing aid. If you try to write something down, Josh takes your stuff. Your only option is to speak, understand?" Marcus nodded, his whole body shaking. "Good. First question. Why do you come to a normal school if you can't even hear?" Marcus's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Terror had locked his throat. "I said answer," Tyler shouted. Marcus felt the vibration of his yell more than heard it. I can... with AIDS..." Marcus's voice cracked, the words slurred and strange because he couldn't monitor his own speech patterns. Josh burst out laughing. "Dude, did you hear that he sounds like he's drunk?" Kaylee zoomed her camera closer. "Guys, I can't even understand what he's saying. This is actually sad." But her face didn't look sad. Her lips curved upward, her eyes bright with the thrill of viral content, of engagement numbers rising, of being the center of digital attention. "Try again," Tyler said. "Speak clearly." Marcus tried. He shaped the words carefully, the way his speech therapist had taught him, trying to remember tongue placement and breath control, and vowel sounds he couldn't fully hear himself producing. "I can hear. With my aids, I can..." "You can what?" "Sound like a freak." Tyler reached down and grabbed Marcus's remaining hearing aid. Marcus's hands shot up instinctively to protect it, but Tyler was ready. He ripped the device away, and suddenly Marcus was completely deaf, utterly cut off from every sound. The world became eerily still, lips moving with no voice, bodies shifting with no footsteps, wind blowing through trees with no rustle. Total silence.
Marcus's breathing accelerated, panic flooding his system. Without his hearing aids, he was lost, unable to know if someone was behind him, beside him, unable to hear danger approaching or help arriving. His eyes darted around desperately, trying to compensate through vision alone. Tyler held both hearing aids now, one in each hand, examining them with theatrical slowness for Kaylee's camera. "These things cost thousands of dollars?" he asked. His lips exaggerated so Marcus could read them.
"Seems like a waste of money if they don't even make you normal." He tossed one to Josh, who fumbled the catch. The hearing aid hit the concrete with a crack that Marcus didn't hear, but felt through the vibration in the ground. Josh picked it up, and even from several feet away, Marcus could see the crack spiderwebbing across the casing.
His mother's voice echoed in his memory, the one sound he could still access, stored in his mind from before the meningitis took his hearing. "These are very expensive, Marcus. You need to take care of them." Marcus lunged toward Josh, his mouth opening in a shout he couldn't hear himself make. Tyler caught him, pushed him back to the bench. "Sit down." Tyler's mouth formed the words with obvious violence. "We're not done yet."
Kaylee's phone swung between Marcus's face and Tyler's, capturing every moment. Marcus could see the screen comments flooding faster than he could read them. Most were laughing emojis, fire emojis, but a few said things like, "This is mean," and "Stop," and "Someone help him." But nobody was helping him. Tyler held the remaining intact hearing aid between his thumb and forefinger, raising it high like a question mark.
"Here's the deal," he said, his lips moving slowly and deliberately. "You tell us you don't belong in this school. You tell us you should go back to the special school for retards. You say it clearly, out loud, for the camera, and maybe we give this back." Marcus shook his head violently. His hands moved through sign language automatically. "No, please, I need that, please." But Tyler wasn't watching his hands. "I can't hear you," Tyler mocked. "Oh wait, you can't hear me either." "That's the whole problem, isn't it?" Josh laughed again, the movement of his shoulders visible even though Marcus couldn't hear the sound. Kaylee stepped closer, her camera inches from Marcus's face. "Come on, just say what Tyler wants. My followers are getting bored." But Marcus couldn't say it. He wouldn't say it. He had as much right to be at Jefferson Middle as anyone else.
His mother had fought the school district for months to get him mainstreamed instead of sent to the deaf school 40 miles away. His teachers had learned basic sign language. He'd been working so hard to prove he belonged. He shook his head again. Tyler's face darkened. "Wrong answer." He dropped the hearing aid. Marcus dove forward, his hands reaching desperately, but Tyler's foot was faster. His sneaker came down on the small device with deliberate force.
The crack was silent to Marcus, but he felt it through the ground, through his bones, through his heart. Tyler lifted his foot, grinding the heel for good measure, and when he stepped back, the hearing aid was crushed, circuitry exposed, plastic shattered, completely destroyed. Marcus collapsed forward, his hands scrambling to gather the pieces, his vision blurring completely now as tears streamed unchecked down his face. He couldn't stop the sob that tore from his throat, couldn't control his own voice as it made sounds he couldn't hear, animal sounds of grief and fear and helplessness. Kaylee filmed it all. "Oh my God, he's actually crying," she said to her camera, her live stream count now over 1,000 viewers. "This is so sad. Like and share if you feel bad for him." But her tone was performative, empty of real empathy, the way people pretended concern while actually feeding on drama. Marcus's hands closed around the broken pieces, plastic cutting into his palm. 3 months of work destroyed. Thousands of dollars of equipment his mother couldn't easily replace. His connection to the hearing world severed by casual cruelty. Josh shifted uncomfortably. "Maybe we should go. Someone might see." "Nobody's coming," Tyler said, but he glanced toward the building anyway. "Everyone's in class." Marcus tried to stand, but his legs wouldn't support him.
He stayed on his knees, broken technology clutched in his hands, completely deaf and completely alone in a courtyard with 3 people who thought his suffering was entertainment. Tyler crouched down in front of him, his face level with Marcus's. His mouth moved in words Marcus could barely process through the tears and shock. "You don't belong here. Remember that." Then Tyler stood, brushed off his hands like he'd just taken out trash, and turned toward Josh and Kaylee. "Come on.
"Let's get to class before anyone notices." But Kaylee was still filming, her phone trained on Marcus's crumpled form. "Wait, this is perfect. Let me get one more shot of him with the broken stuff." She circled around, finding the angle that best captured Marcus's devastation. The broken hearing aids in his hands, the tears on his face, the complete defeat in his posture. "Perfect," she whispered, more to her phone than to anyone present. "This is gonna get so many views."
Marcus finally looked up at her, and something in his expression must have registered, because her smile faltered. For just a second, she looked uncertain, almost guilty. But then she glanced at her screen comments, pouring in follower count climbing, and the moment passed. Tyler grabbed her arm. "We need to go, now." Fine. She lowered her phone fingers, flying across the screen. "Just posting it with the hashtag."
Marcus couldn't hear what hashtag she used, but he watched her type it, watched her hit the post button, watched his humiliation being packaged and distributed to thousands of strangers who would never know his name, never know that he'd been a musician before meningitis destroyed his hearing, never know that he still had perfect pitch in his memory, even though he couldn't hear music anymore, never know that he was more than this moment of broken technology and public shame. The 3 bullies walked away, their backs to Marcus, laughing about something he couldn't hear, and Marcus stayed on the ground, broken hearing aids cutting into his palms, tears dripping onto concrete, completely silent in a way that had nothing to do with deafness and everything to do with voicelessness. He didn't know that in Josh's pocket, the live stream was still running. He didn't know that in a hospital 15 minutes away, his mother's phone was buzzing with a notification. He didn't know that in an office building downtown, a police captain who served with his father was opening her social media and seeing a familiar last name in a trending video. He didn't know that in the school's administrative wing, Officer Ray Dawson was checking his phone on his coffee break and seeing something that made his jaw clench and his hand reach for his radio. He didn't know that his sister Nina, sitting in her high school calculus class, had just looked at her phone under her desk and felt her blood go cold. He didn't know that help was coming, that justice was brewing, that this moment, this horrible, crushing moment, was about to become something very different. All Marcus knew was the silence, the broken technology in his hands, and the complete certainty that he was alone. But he was wrong about that last part. Nina Chen's phone vibrated against her thigh during a derivative equation explanation she wasn't absorbing anyway. She glanced down at the screen. 3 texts from different friends, all with the same link, all with variations of, Is this your brother? Her stomach dropped before she even clicked it. The video loaded quickly. Tyler Brennan's sneering face, Marcus on his knees, the sick crunch of something breaking underfoot, and her baby brother's face, devastated and terrified and so small. Miss Chen, is everything all right? Her calculus teacher's voice seems to come from far away. Nina stood abruptly, chair scraping loud against linoleum. I need to go to the office. Family emergency. She didn't wait for permission, just grabbed her backpack and walked out, phone already at her ear as she dialed her mother's number. It went straight to voicemail. Mom was probably with a patient in the ER. Nina tried texting instead, her fingers shaking so hard she had to retype twice. Mom, Marcus, emergency. Jefferson Middle. Someone hurt him. I'm coming. She broke into a run through the empty hallway, ignoring the startled look from a bathroom-bound student. Her school was only 10 minutes from Jefferson Middle if she cut through the park. She'd figure out the unexcused absence later. Right now, her brother needed her. Dr. Sarah Chen's phone finally vibrated in her scrub's pocket as she finished stitching up a construction worker's lacerated arm. She ignored it. ER doctors didn't check phones mid-procedure. But when it buzzed 3 more times in rapid succession, her nurse gave her a concerned look. Dr. Chen, maybe you should check that? Sarah tied off the final suture. All done, Mr. Rodriguez. Nurse will bandage that up. Keep it clean and dry. Follow up with your primary care in 5 days. She stripped off her gloves and pulled out her phone as she walked toward the break room. Nina's text appeared first, sending Sarah's heart rate spiking. Then notifications started flooding in. Tagged in a video, mentioned in comments, 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize but had a police department area code. She clicked the video link. 10 seconds in, she was running for her car, white coat abandoned on a break room chair, her resident calling after her that she had patients waiting. Sarah didn't care. She'd built her career, survived medical school as a single mother, worked double shifts to afford Marcus's hearing aids. But none of that mattered next to the image of her son's shattered expression. She drove 15 miles over the speed limit, her hands gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles went white. And all she could think was that she'd promised Marcus he'd be safe at Jefferson Middle, that mainstream school would give him opportunities, that he'd make friends and have a normal adolescence. She'd been wrong. Officer Ray Dawson watched the video twice before standing up from his desk in the Jefferson Middle security office, his coffee cup still steaming, his morning patrol route abandoned. His K-9 partner, Duke, a German shepherd trained for both security and crisis intervention, sensed the change in Dawson's energy immediately. The dog rose from his bed in the corner, ears alert. "Come here, boy," Dawson said, his voice tight. Duke trotted over, and Dawson clipped the lead to his collar with practiced efficiency. He'd been a K-9 officer for 12 years, had a deaf daughter at home who was just a few years older than the boy in the video, and the parallels made his chest ache with protective fury. He grabbed his radio. "Dawson to dispatch. I need the location of 3 students, Tyler Brennan, Josh Martinez, and Kaylee Morrison. Also need you to contact Captain Torres. Tell her I'm invoking vulnerable minor protocol." The radio crackled back. "Copy that. Torres is already en route. She saw the video. 3 units responding." Dawson nodded to himself. Michelle Torres didn't mess around when it came to kids. If she was mobilizing multiple K-9 units for what would normally be a school discipline issue, it meant she understood what he understood. This wasn't just bullying. This was assault, destruction of medical equipment, and potential hate crime territory, given the targeting of a disabled minor. "Where are the 3 students now?" Dawson asked into the radio. "Brennan and Martinez are in Mr. Foster's second period English. Morrison is in Miss Jackson's art class. The victim," a pause, rustling papers, "Marcus Chen is in the courtyard behind B building, still there according to security camera feed." Dawson's jaw clenched. still there. That meant Marcus had been sitting in that courtyard for 20 minutes since the incident, alone, probably unable to hear if anyone called to him, waiting for what? For someone to find him? For the ground to swallow him up? I'm heading to the courtyard. Send additional units to contain the 3 students. Nobody moves until Captain Torres arrives. Copy that. Dawson and Duke moved through the hallways at a brisk walk, students parting automatically for the canine officer. Duke's training included work with trauma survivors, with people in crisis, and Dawson could already see the dog's posture shifting into working mode, alert but non-threatening, ready to provide comfort rather than fear. They pushed through the courtyard doors, and Dawson spotted Marcus immediately, still in the same position from the video, still holding the broken hearing aids, still crying silently. Dawson approached slowly, making sure he entered Marcus's field of vision from the front so he wouldn't startle him. When Marcus's red-rimmed eyes finally focused on the uniform and the dog, fresh tears spilled over. Dawson knew from experience that speaking was useless. The kid couldn't hear him, and the broken hearing aids made that painfully clear. Instead, he did what he did at home every day with his daughter Grace. His hands moved through sign language. I'm Officer Dawson. I'm here to help. You're safe now. Marcus's face transformed. Shock, relief, desperate hope all flickering across his features in rapid succession. His hands moved in response, fast and fluid. They broke my hearing aids. I can't hear anything. I need my aids. My mom can't afford new ones. I need them. I know, Dawson signed back. We saw the video. We have evidence. Your mother is coming. Help is here. Marcus's shoulders shook with sobs. But now there was something else in his expression. Not just despair, but the first fragile possibility that this might not be the end, that someone had seen, that someone cared. Duke moved forward carefully, his tail wagging slowly in his calm working mode. The dog sat directly in front of Marcus, close enough to touch but not forcing contact, just offering his presence. Marcus's hand stretched out tentatively, and Duke leaned into it, letting the boy bury his fingers in thick fur. The physical contact seemed to anchor Marcus, his breathing gradually slowing, his tears still falling but less desperately. Dawson's radio crackled. The static vibration made Marcus flinch, his eyes going wide. Captain Torres is 2 minutes out with 3 additional units. Students have been detained in their classrooms pending interview. Principal Martinez is requesting your presence in the administrative office. Dawson clicked the radio off. He wasn't going anywhere until Marcus's mother arrived, until he knew this kid was surrounded by people who would protect him, until he was certain that justice was coming. His hands moved through sign language again. More officers are coming. Police dogs. They're here because what happened to you was wrong. It was a crime. Do you understand? Marcus nodded slowly, his face showing confusion beneath the trauma. Confusion that this much response was happening, that adults with authority were mobilizing, that his suffering was being taken seriously. The people who hurt you will face consequences, Dawson signed. Real consequences. Not just detention. Do you trust me? Marcus stared at him for a long moment. Then his hands moved in a question. Why do you know sign language? My daughter is deaf, Dawson signed back. Her name is Grace. She's 14. When she comes home from school, she tells me stories in ASL about her day. You remind me of her. Something cracked in Marcus's expression. The realization that he wasn't alone in the world, that there were other deaf kids, other families who understood, other people who learned sign language not because they had to, but because they loved someone. The courtyard doors burst open, and Nina Chen ran through them like a sprinter breaking the tape. She saw Marcus and Officer Dawson and Duke, and her face, so much like Marcus's, the same bone structure and coloring, crumpled with relief and fury. She dropped to her knees beside her brother, her hands flying through sign language. "I saw. I'm here. Mom is coming. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm so sorry." Marcus turned to her, and the dam broke completely. He collapsed into his sister's arms, and Nina held him like she'd held him when he was 7 and had just woken up from meningitis in a hospital bed to discover the world had gone silent. Held him like she'd promised their deployed father she would. Held him like the fierce protector she'd been forced to become too young. Dawson gave them space, but didn't leave. Duke settled beside them, a warm, solid presence of canine devotion that asked nothing except to help. The radio crackled again. "Captain Torres entering campus now. 3 units positioning around building perimeter. School is going into modified lockdown. All students remain in classrooms until further notice." Marcus couldn't hear the radio, but he felt the vibration of it through the ground, and his eyes met Dawson's with a question. Dawson's hands moved through sign language. "Justice is coming. Just wait." And in the distance, growing closer, came the sound Marcus couldn't hear, but Nina and Officer Dawson could. The distinctive rhythm of multiple canine units approaching, the radio chatter of officers coordinating a response, the administrative scramble of a school system realizing it had failed to protect one of its most vulnerable students. The video was still spreading online. 5,000 views now. 10,000. Comments multiplying faster than anyone could read them. Some mocked, some defended, some shared statistics about bullying and disability, some tagged news outlets and advocacy groups. But in the courtyard, none of that mattered yet. What mattered was Marcus, held by his sister, protected by an officer who understood his language, comforted by a dog trained to heal trauma, waiting for his mother and for consequences, and for the moment when the world would realize that the deaf boy they thought was powerless had actually just mobilized an entire police force. The surveillance had been reversed. The hunters had become the hunted, and Tyler Brennan, sitting in English class completely unaware of the storm heading his way, had about 3 minutes left before his life changed forever. Captain Michelle Torres pulled into Jefferson Middle's parking lot with 3 canine units behind her, their vehicles forming a deliberate perimeter that sent a clear message to anyone watching. This wasn't a routine school visit. Her partner, a Belgian Malinois named Ranger, sat alert in the passenger seat, his ears pricked forward as he sensed the shift in his handler's energy. Torres had seen the video 17 minutes ago, and 3 things had crystallized instantly in her mind. First, the boy's last name, Chen. She'd served 2 tours with Lieutenant Commander James Chen, had trusted him with her life in situations where trust meant survival. Second, the deliberate destruction of medical equipment on camera, which elevated this beyond typical school bullying into criminal territory. Third, the live stream element, which meant evidence was already preserved and spreading, which meant there was no way for anyone to downplay or dismiss what had happened. She stepped out of her vehicle and radioed Dawson immediately. "Torres to Dawson. Status on the victim?" "In the courtyard with his sister. His mother is en route. Kid's pretty shaken, but physically unharmed. Both hearing aids destroyed." Torres's jaw tightened. "And the 3 students?" "Contained in separate classrooms. They don't know we're coming yet." "Keep it that way. I want to talk to the Chen boy first, then we handle the others. How's his communication?" "ASL. I've been signing with him." "Good. I'm coming to you." Torres clipped Ranger's lead and started toward B building, her boots echoing against asphalt. 2 other canine officers fell in step behind her. Officer Lisa Park with her German Shepherd Atlas, and Officer David Green with his Dutch Shepherd Nix. All 3 dogs were trained in both security and crisis intervention, capable of reading human distress and responding with calculated calm. They entered the building and moved through hallways where students pressed their faces against classroom door windows, whispers spreading faster than the officers walked. Teachers stood at their doors, uncertain whether to be alarmed or relieved by the police presence. Principal Dr. Helen Martinez intercepted them before they reached the courtyard, her face pale and pinched with the expression of an administrator who'd just realized her school was about to become a lawsuit. Captain Torres, I wasn't informed about multiple units responding. This is highly irregular for a student conflict situation. Torres didn't slow down. This stopped being a student conflict when they destroyed medical equipment belonging to a disabled minor while live streaming it. This is assault, destruction of property, and potential hate crime territory. My units are here, and we're conducting interviews. You can cooperate or explain to the superintendent why you obstructed a police investigation involving a vulnerable child. Martinez's mouth opened and closed. I just think we should handle this through school discipline channels first. Those channels failed the moment 3 students cornered a deaf child and tormented him for entertainment. Torres stopped walking and turned to face the principal directly. Where were your hall monitors? Where were your teachers? Where was anyone when Marcus Chen was being dragged to an empty courtyard and assaulted? We can't monitor every space at all times, then you can't protect your students, which is why we're here. Torres resumed walking, leaving Martinez standing in the hallway, her professional veneer cracking under the weight of institutional failure. They pushed through the courtyard doors, and Torres took in the scene quickly, Dawson kneeling beside a teenage girl who had to be Nina Chen, both of them flanking a smaller boy whose face bore the unmistakable tracks of prolonged crying. Duke sat pressed against the boy's side, and when Marcus looked up at the sound of more officers arriving, his eyes went wide with something between hope and fear. Torres approached slowly, crouching down to Marcus's eye level before her hands moved through sign language, fluid and confident from years of working with James Chen and learning military tactical ASL. Marcus, my name is Captain Torres. I served with your father in the Navy. He's a good man, and you're his son, which means you matter to me. What happened to you today was wrong. It was criminal, and we're going to make sure the people who hurt you face real consequences. Do you understand? Marcus's hands trembled as he signed back. You know my dad? I do. We were deployed together, twice. He saved my life in Kandahar when our convoy was ambushed. He pulled me out of a burning vehicle. Torres paused, letting that sink in. Your father is one of the bravest people I know. And I see that same bravery in you, surviving what happened this morning and still being here, still holding on. Marcus's face crumpled again, fresh tears spilling over. But these were different tears. Nina's arm tightened around her brother's shoulders. Torres continued signing. I need to ask you some questions. I know it's hard, but everything you tell me helps us build a case to protect you and make sure this never happens to anyone else. Can you do that? Marcus nodded, his hands moving slowly through the story. The hallway confrontation, being dragged to the courtyard, Tyler's demands that he speak, the crushing of his hearing aids, Kaylee's live stream. His signing became more agitated as he described the moment Tyler's foot came down on the technology, his hands shaking so badly that Torres had to ask him to repeat certain parts. Officer Park was documenting everything on her tablet, timestamping each element of Marcus's statement. Officer Green was photographing the broken hearing aid pieces that Marcus still clutched, creating evidence documentation that would hold up in court. When Marcus finished, his hands dropped to his lap, exhausted from reliving trauma. Torres reached out and squeezed his shoulder gently. You did great. What you just told me is enough to charge all 3 of them. The video evidence supports everything you've said. She paused. I'm going to contact your father. He needs to know what happened, and he needs to hear from you that you're okay. Would you like that? Marcus's hands moved frantically. He's deployed. He's on a ship. He can't. He's the XO of a carrier. I have his secure contact information. We can set up a video call within the hour. Torres pulled out her phone. Your mom is almost here. I just got a text from dispatch. She's 5 minutes out, but your dad should know too. Nina spoke for the first time, her voice thick with emotion. He'll want to come home. He'll request emergency leave. Maybe, Torres agreed. That's between your family and the Navy. But he deserves to know his son was hurt and that we're handling it. Marcus's hands signed a question that made Torres's chest tight. Will they go to jail? They're juveniles, so probably not jail. But they'll face charges. Destruction of property, assault, possibly more depending on what else we find. Their school's records will reflect this. College applications will be affected. If they're over 14, they could face criminal court instead of just juvenile. They'll have consequences that follow them. Dawson's radio crackled. Security to Captain Torres. Dr. Sarah Chen just pulled into the parking lot. She's approaching B building at a run. Copy that. Torres stood, her hand still on Marcus's shoulder. Your mom's here. Marcus turned toward the courtyard doors, his whole body tensing with anticipation. When Sarah Chen burst through those doors 30 seconds later, still in her scrubs, her hospital ID badge swinging from her neck, her face a mask of maternal fury and love, Marcus struggled to his feet. Mom, he said aloud, his voice cracking on the word he couldn't hear himself say. Sarah closed the distance in 3 strides, pulling Marcus into her arms so fiercely that he gasped. Her hands moved immediately to his face, checking for injuries with the practiced efficiency of an ER physician, then moved to examine where his hearing aids should have been, finding empty ears and broken technology in his hands. Oh, baby, she whispered, though Marcus couldn't hear her. Then her hands shifted to sign language. I'm here. I saw what they did. I'm going to fix this. You can't fix them, Marcus signed back, holding up the shattered pieces. They're completely destroyed. The circuits are. I don't care what they cost, Sarah signed, her movements sharp with determination. I will buy you new ones today, tonight, whenever we can get them. Money doesn't matter. But you worked so many shifts to afford these ones, and I'll work more shifts, or I'll take a loan, or I'll do whatever I have to do. Sarah's eyes blazed. You are not going without hearing aids because some cruel children decided to destroy your property. Do you understand me? Nina moved closer, creating a protective triangle around Marcus with their mother. The video has like 20,000 views now, Mom. It's all over social media. Sarah's face went rigid. Show me. Nina pulled out her phone, and Sarah watched the video in silence, her jaw clenching tighter with each passing second. When Tyler's foot came down on the hearing aid, crushing it against concrete, Sarah made a sound low in her throat that Marcus couldn't hear, but felt through his mother's body pressed against his. Torres stepped forward. Dr. Chen, I'm Captain Michelle Torres. I served with your husband. I need to discuss the charges we're filing and get your consent for some procedures. Sarah's doctor composure slid back into place. The professional mask that had gotten her through medical school as a single mother, through James's deployments, through Marcus's meningitis and the months of therapy that followed. She kept one arm around Marcus as she faced Torres. What charges? Assault, destruction of property, potential hate crime enhancement given the targeting of his disability. The live stream element adds cyberbullying components. All 3 students will face juvenile charges at minimum. And if I want to pursue civil damages? That's your right. The school's liability is significant here. Failure to supervise, failure to protect a student with documented disabilities, allowing an assault to occur on school property. You'd have grounds. Sarah nodded, her mind clearly calculating legal strategies alongside medical ones. What do you need from us? Full medical documentation of Marcus's hearing loss, the cost of the destroyed hearing aids, any psychological trauma assessments you want to pursue, and Marcus's continued cooperation with the investigation. You'll have all of it. Sarah's arm tightened around Marcus. And I want a meeting with the superintendent, the school board, and the district's legal counsel. Today. I can arrange that, Principal Martinez said from the doorway, where she'd been hovering uncertainly. Dr. Chen, I want you to know that Jefferson Middle takes these incidents very seriously. You took it seriously enough to let my son sit in this courtyard for 20 minutes after being assaulted? Sarah's voice could have cut glass. You took it seriously enough to have no adult supervision in a space where 3 students dragged a disabled child for the purpose of tormenting him? Martinez paled. We're implementing new protocols. Save it for the lawsuit. Sarah turned back to Torres. Can we take Marcus home? After we get his full statement documented and photographed. Another 30 minutes maximum. Officer Park is handling that. Torres glanced at Marcus. But there's one more thing. I want to try to reach your husband. Marcus said he'd want to talk to his dad. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. James needs to know. But he's going to lose his mind. I'm counting on it. Torres pulled out her phone and stepped away, dialing a number from memory. The call connected after several rings, routed through Navy communications channels. XO Chen? James, it's Michelle Torres. I'm stateside, working K-9 unit in your family's district. I'm with your son Marcus right now. He's physically okay, but something happened at school today that you need to know about. There was a pause. Then James Chen's voice came back, tight, with instant alertness. What happened? Torres gave him the abbreviated version. The bullying, the destroyed hearing aids, the live stream, the charges being filed. With each sentence, she could hear James's breathing change, could hear the shift from military officer to father happening in real time. I want to talk to him. Right now. I'm setting up video. Give me 1 minute. Torres pulled out a tablet, positioning it so Marcus could see the screen. Marcus, your dad's on the line. He wants to see you. Marcus's face transformed, fear and trauma temporarily eclipsed by desperate longing. He moved in front of the tablet as the video call connected, and suddenly James Chen's face filled the screen, weathered by sun and salt, wearing his Navy uniform, sitting in what looked like his quarters on the carrier. Marcus's hands flew through sign language before his father even spoke. Dad, I'm okay. Don't worry, I'm okay. James's throat worked visibly. His own hands moved through ASL, fluid from years of practice since his son's diagnosis. Tell me what happened. All of it. Marcus recounted the story again, his signing more controlled now with his father's steady presence anchoring it. James watched without interrupting, his face a careful mask of military composure that cracked only in his eyes, where fury burned steady and cold. When Marcus finished, James signed back. You did nothing wrong. You understand that. Nothing. You have every right to be at that school. You have every right to use ASL or hearing aids or whatever helps you communicate. Anyone who makes you feel otherwise is wrong. Not you. Them. I tried to tell them that, but they wouldn't listen, because they're ignorant and cruel. But that's their failure, not yours. James leaned closer to the camera. Captain Torres is one of the best officers I know. She's going to make sure those kids face consequences. Your mom is going to make sure you get new hearing aids. Your sister is going to protect you. And I'm going to request emergency leave and be home within 48 hours. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You're my son. Someone hurt you. I'm coming home. James's signing was emphatic, leaving no room for argument. Until I get there, you stay close to Mom and Nina. You let Officer Dawson and Captain Torres do their jobs. And you remember that being deaf doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. Because you navigate a world that wasn't built for you. And you do it with grace. You hear me? Marcus nodded, tears streaming again, and signed back. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. So much. I'll be home soon. James looked past Marcus to someone off-screen. "Sarah, take care of our boy." Sarah moved into frame. "Always. We'll see you in 2 days." The call ended, and Marcus sagged against his mother, emotionally exhausted. Nina rubbed his back while Sarah signed against his shoulder. "We're going to get through this. Together." Torres motioned to Officer Park. "Let's get the rest of his statement documented quickly. This family's been through enough today." Park nodded and began the formal interview process, asking Marcus detailed questions about timing, exact words spoken, physical contact, property destruction. Every answer was recorded, time-stamped, and corroborated against the video evidence that was still spreading online. 30,000 views now, news outlets starting to pick up the story, disability advocacy groups beginning to mobilize. While Park worked with Marcus, Torres radioed her units. "All teams, prepare to interview the 3 students separately. I want parents contacted and present before we talk to any of them. This goes by the book, no shortcuts, no mistakes that let them walk on technicalities." Dawson responded first. "Tyler Brennan's parents are already here. They showed up 10 minutes ago demanding to know why their son is being detained." "Perfect. Put them in conference room A. I'll talk to them first." Torres looked at Dr. Martinez. "I need 3 separate spaces for interviews, all with recording capabilities." Martinez nodded weakly. "Conference rooms A, B, and C. They're ready." Torres started toward the building, but Sarah's voice stopped her. "Captain Torres?" Torres turned back. "Make them understand what they've done, not just legally, but what they've done to my son. Make them see him as human." "I'll do my best, Dr. Chen. But some people will never see past their own cruelty." Torres paused. "But I promise you this, they'll face consequences whether they understand them or not." She walked back into the school, Ranger at her side, ready to deliver justice to 3 students who had no idea their world was about to collapse, who were still sitting in their classrooms thinking they'd gotten away with it, thinking the video was just content, thinking Marcus Chen was just a target, thinking actions didn't have consequences. They were about to learn differently. And in the courtyard, Marcus Chen sat surrounded by people who loved him, protected by dogs trained to defend the vulnerable, supported by officers who understood his language, held by a mother who would move mountains for him, and connected to a father who was already making arrangements to come home from deployment. The bullies had tried to isolate him. Instead, they'd revealed just how not alone he really was. Tyler Brennan sat in his second period English class, his phone hidden under his desk, refreshing Kaylee's Instagram feed every 30 seconds. The video had 42,000 views now, comments pouring in faster than he could read them. Most were laughing emojis and fire symbols, his friends from the football team dropping comments like "savage" and "that's cold, bro," with skull emojis. He smirked at Josh across the classroom, giving him a subtle thumbs up. Josh grinned back, clearly riding the same high of viral attention. They'd pulled off something legendary, something people would talk about for weeks. The deaf kid crying on camera, the hearing aid crunching underfoot. It was brutal, sure, but that's what made it perfect content. Tyler's phone buzzed with a text from his buddy Derek. "Dude, you're trending on the school hashtag. Everyone's seen it." He was typing back a response when Mr. Foster stopped mid-sentence about Shakespeare and looked toward the classroom door. Tyler followed his gaze and felt his stomach drop. Officer Ray Dawson stood in the doorway with Duke, the German shepherd that usually just wandered campus looking friendly. But Duke wasn't looking friendly now. The dog's ears were forward, his body alert, and Dawson's face was carved from stone. "Tyler Brennan, you need to come with me." The classroom went dead silent. Every student turned to look at Tyler, and the attention felt different now. Not admiring, but curious. almost predatory. Someone near the back whispered something Tyler couldn't catch. "What's this about?" Tyler asked, trying to sound casual even as his hands went clammy. "Now, please." Dawson's tone left no room for negotiation. Tyler stood, grabbing his backpack, playing it cool for his classmates. "Probably just some schedule thing. I'll be back." But as he walked toward the door, he caught Josh's expression, confused, worried, and he saw Mr. Foster pull out his phone, his face grim. The hallway was wrong. Too many police officers, too many canine dogs, all positioned like they were securing a perimeter. Tyler's bravado cracked. "What's going on? Did something happen?" Dawson didn't answer, just guided Tyler toward the administrative wing, with Duke walking between them, creating a barrier Tyler couldn't cross even if he wanted to run. They turned a corner, and Tyler saw more officers, saw Principal Martinez talking urgently with a woman in a police captain's uniform, saw his parents standing outside Conference Room A, looking furious and frightened in equal measure. His mother spotted him first. "Tyler, what did you do?" "Nothing! I didn't do anything!" His father, a corporate lawyer who'd taught Tyler that winning was everything and excuses were for losers, stepped forward.
"Don't say another word until we understand what's happening here."
Captain Torres turned from her conversation with Martinez, her eyes locking onto Tyler with the precision of a predator identifying prey. "Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, your son is being questioned regarding an assault that occurred on school property this morning. The incident was live-streamed and has been viewed by over 40,000 people. We have video evidence of Tyler destroying medical equipment belonging to another student, physical assault, and participation in what may constitute a hate crime against a disabled minor." Tyler's mother gasped. His father's lawyer face slammed into place. "We'll need to see this alleged evidence before we proceed with any questioning." "Of course." Torres pulled out a tablet and played the video, angling it so both parents could see. Tyler watched his parents watch him, watched his mother's hand fly to her mouth when his shoe came down on Marcus's hearing aid, watched his father's jaw clench when Tyler mocked the deaf boy's voice, watched them see him, really see him, as something other than their successful, athletic, popular son. "Oh my God," his mother whispered. "Tyler, how could you?" "He was asking for it," Tyler blurted out, then caught his father's sharp look. But he couldn't stop now, couldn't let them think he was wrong. He walks around acting all special because he's deaf, getting accommodations and extra attention, making everyone tiptoe around him. Someone needed to teach him that he doesn't get special treatment. The silence that followed his words was suffocating. Even his father looked shocked, and his father never looked shocked. Torres spoke quietly, but her voice carried weight. "That special treatment is called federal disability accommodation, which is legally protected. What you did is called assault, destruction of property, and potentially a hate crime. You're 14, which means you can be charged as an adult if the DA decides your actions warrant it." Tyler's confidence shattered. "Wait, no, it was just a joke. We were just messing around." Destroying someone's medical equipment while mocking their disability isn't a joke. It's a crime. Torres motioned toward Conference Room A. "We need to conduct a formal interview. Your parents can be present, but Tyler needs to answer questions." Mr. Brennan's lawyer instincts kicked in. "We want our attorney present before any questioning occurs." "That's your right. We'll wait." Torres checked her watch. "But I should inform you that while we wait, I have 2 other students to interview who may be willing to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges. First one to talk usually gets the best deal." Tyler saw his father's expression shift, saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. Mr. Brennan pulled his phone out and stepped away, already dialing their family attorney. Mrs. Brennan moved closer to Tyler, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Tell me the truth. Did you really hurt that boy?" I just broke his hearing aids, Mom. It's not like I beat him up or something. Those hearing aids cost thousands of dollars, Tyler. And you broke them deliberately. On camera. Her voice cracked. What were you thinking? Tyler's anger flared, the same anger that had driven him to target Marcus in the first place, the anger that lived in his chest like hot coals whenever someone challenged his position at the top of the school hierarchy. I was thinking that kid needed to learn his place. He doesn't belong here. He should be at a special school with other disabled kids, not taking up space in our classes and slowing everything down. His mother recoiled like he'd slapped her. That's not how we raised you. You raised me to win, Tyler shot back. You raised me to not let anyone get ahead of me. That's exactly what I'm doing. Whatever his mother was going to say next was cut off by his father returning, phone still in hand. Our attorney is 30 minutes away. Captain Torres, we'll wait for counsel before proceeding. Understood. Torres turned to Dawson. Take Tyler to conference room A. Parents can wait inside with him, but no discussing the case until the attorney arrives. As they moved toward the conference room, Tyler caught sight of Josh being escorted down the hallway by another officer, Josh's parents walking behind him, looking devastated. Josh's eyes met Tyler's for a split second, and Tyler saw something there that made his blood run cold. Fear, but also something else. Calculation. The look of someone deciding whether to save himself. The conference room was small and sterile, a table and chairs and nothing else. Tyler sat down, his parents on either side of him, and the waiting began. His mother wouldn't look at him. His father kept checking his phone, his jaw working like he was grinding his teeth to dust. This will be fine, Mr. Brennan finally said. We'll handle this. The school has liability here. They should have had better supervision. We can argue that the environment created the situation. Richard, our son destroyed a disabled child's medical equipment on camera while mocking his disability. What argument could possibly make that okay? Mrs. Brennan's voice was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the room like a knife. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying there are legal angles. I don't want legal angles. I want to know where we went wrong. I want to know how our son became someone who tortures other children for entertainment. Tyler slammed his hand on the table. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. And stop acting like I'm some monster. Everyone at school thought it was funny. You should see the comments. People are calling me legendary. His mother's hand shot across the table and grabbed his wrist hard enough to hurt. Those people don't matter. That boy you hurt matters. His family matters. The consequences you're about to face matter. She released him, her hand shaking. And if you can't understand that, then maybe you are a monster. The door opened before Tyler could respond, and a man in a suit walked in. Their attorney, Gerald something, who'd gotten Tyler out of trouble before when he'd keyed a teammate's car during a fight over a girl. Gerald had made that go away with a settlement and an NDA. He'd make this go away too. Don't say anything yet, Gerald instructed, setting his briefcase on the table. Let me talk to the police first, understand what they have, and then we'll decide how to proceed. He left to find Captain Torres, and the room fell back into tense silence. Tyler pulled out his phone, desperate for distraction, and refreshed Kaylee's Instagram again. The video had been taken down. His stomach lurched. He checked his own social media, checked the school hashtag, checked everywhere the video had been posted. Gone. All of it. Deleted or removed, he couldn't tell which, but the comments were still there, and as he scrolled through them, he realized something had shifted. The newer comments weren't laughing anymore. They were angry, disgusted. Someone had posted a follow-up video explaining that Marcus was deaf, that the hearing aids Tyler destroyed cost over $6,000, that Marcus's father was deployed with the Navy, that the police had been called. Tyler Brennan is a coward who picks on disabled kids, read one comment with 3,000 likes. Hope he gets expelled and arrested, read another. "This is why bullying needs real consequences," read a third. Tyler's hands started shaking. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The video was supposed to make him more popular, more feared, more respected. Instead, it was turning him into a villain. "They took the video down," he said to no one in particular. His father glanced over. "Good. Less evidence." "The police already have it," his mother said flatly. "And so do 40,000 other people who watched it. Taking it down now doesn't undo what you did." Gerald returned with Captain Torres, who carried a thick folder and the same tablet from before. She sat across from Tyler, her posture relaxed but her eyes sharp. "Thank you for waiting. I've reviewed the evidence with your attorney. Mr. Brennan, I've explained to him that we have video documentation of Tyler assaulting Marcus Chen, destroying his hearing aids and mocking his disability. We also have witness statements from other students, security camera footage confirming the timeline, and Marcus's testimony. The evidence is substantial." Gerald leaned forward. "My client is a minor with no prior record. Whatever happened was clearly a lapse in judgment, not criminal intent. Deliberate destruction of property shows intent. Targeting a disability shows bias. Live streaming it shows premeditation and a desire for attention. This isn't a lapse in judgment. This is calculated cruelty." Torres opened the folder and pulled out photos of Marcus's broken hearing aids. "These devices cost $6,000. They were Marcus Chen's only way to access sound. Your client destroyed them because he thought it was funny." Tyler's throat tightened looking at those photos, at the shattered plastic and exposed circuitry, at the physical proof of what he'd done. It had felt powerful in the moment, standing over Marcus and crushing that hearing aid underfoot, feeling like he controlled someone completely. But now, looking at the aftermath, it just felt small and mean. "Tyler, I need you to tell me what happened this morning," Torres said. "Start with why you targeted Marcus." Gerald put a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "You don't have to answer that." "But he should," Torres said calmly. "Because right now, we're interviewing Josh Martinez and Kaylee Morrison separately. Whichever one of you three cooperates first and shows genuine remorse will likely face lesser charges. The others will face the full weight of what happened." Mr. Brennan's lawyer face flickered. Tyler could see his father doing the math, weighing outcomes and strategies. "What kind of cooperation are we talking about?" "Full truthful testimony about the incident, written apology to the victim and his family, agreement to participate in restorative justice programming if the family agrees to it, and acceptance of responsibility without deflecting blame onto others." "And in exchange?" "We advocate for juvenile court instead of adult charges, recommend probation over detention, and support alternative school placement rather than permanent expulsion." Torres paused. "But this offer expires the moment one of the other two students takes it. Could be Josh, could be Kaylee. First one through that door wins." Tyler watched his father and Gerald exchange looks, watched the silent communication of adults who understood leverage and consequences. His mother just looked at him, her eyes red-rimmed and disappointed. "Tyler," she said quietly, "tell the truth. Just tell the truth about what you did and why." Something in her voice cracked through his defenses, through the bravado and anger he'd built up like armor. He thought about Marcus on his knees in that courtyard, thought about the way the deaf boy's face had crumpled when the hearing aid broke, thought about his own voice mocking Marcus's attempts to speak. And for the first time all day, Tyler felt something other than justified anger. He felt shame. "I targeted him because he's different," Tyler said, the words coming out rough and reluctant. "Because he uses sign language and needs accommodations and gets extra attention from teachers. It annoyed me. So I started messing with him, knocking into him in the hallway, stealing his stuff, making fun of how he talks. Today I just I wanted to do something that would get attention. Kaylee said she'd live stream it if we did something big. So we took him to the courtyard.
Why the courtyard specifically? Torres asked.
Because no teachers go there during class time. We knew we wouldn't get caught. Walk me through what happened once you got Marcus there. Tyler went through the whole thing, demanding Marcus speak, mocking his voice, the decision to take his hearing aids, the moment of crushing one underfoot. With each detail, his mother's quiet crying got harder to ignore. His father's silence got heavier. When he finished, Torres asked the question that made Tyler's stomach drop. Do you understand what you did to Marcus Chen? Not legally, but as a human being? Tyler opened his mouth to deflect, to minimize, to explain that it wasn't that big a deal. But his mother's broken expression stopped him. I made him feel helpless, Tyler said slowly, the realization settling over him like cold water. I took away the thing that helps him hear, and I destroyed it while he watched. I made him beg. I made him cry. I made him feel like he didn't belong and like nobody would help him. Why did you do that? Torres pressed. Tyler looked at his hands, at the fingers that had crushed expensive technology, that had pushed a smaller kid around, that had taken video of someone's worst moment. Because it made me feel powerful. Because I'm tired of trying so hard to be perfect at everything, and I wanted someone beneath me who I could control. Because... He stopped, something ugly rising in his throat. Because my dad screams at me every time I'm not the best at something, and I can't do anything about that. But I could do something about Marcus. The silence in the room was absolute. Tyler had never said that out loud before, had never admitted that the anger driving him came from somewhere else, came from never being good enough at home, no matter how many games he won or grades he earned. His father stood abruptly. That's enough. Tyler, don't say another word. But Tyler kept going, the words pouring out like poison he'd been holding in for years. You told me winners don't make excuses and losers end up serving fries. You told me to dominate or be dominated. You told me that showing weakness gets you destroyed. So that's what I did. I found someone weaker, and I destroyed him before anyone could destroy me. Mr. Brennan's face went white, then red. You're twisting everything I said. I'm not twisting anything. I'm doing exactly what you taught me. Tyler looked at his father for the first time with something other than fear or desire for approval. And now I'm facing charges because I followed your rules. Torres closed her folder. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, I think we need to expand this investigation. If there's an environment at home that's contributing to Tyler's behavior, that's something the court will want to know about. Mr. Brennan's lawyer mask slipped completely. You can't possibly be suggesting. I'm suggesting that a school counselor has filed 3 reports expressing concern about Tyler's home life in the past year. Reports that mention Tyler coming to school with anxiety symptoms, talking about extreme pressure at home, and showing signs of emotional distress that don't match his outward performance. Torres pulled out another sheet from her folder. Those reports are now part of this investigation. Tyler stared at the page, at documented proof that someone had noticed, that his masks weren't as effective as he'd thought. His mother looked stricken. His father looked furious and trapped. Tyler needs help, Torres said simply. Not just punishment, but he also needs to face consequences for what he did to Marcus. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. The door opened and Officer Park stuck her head in. Captain, Josh Martinez just gave a full statement. He's cooperating completely. Torres stood. Then we're done here. Tyler, you'll be charged with assault, destruction of property, and a bias crime enhancement. Your arraignment will be scheduled within 72 hours. You're suspended from school pending an expulsion hearing. She looked at his parents. Get him a good therapist. He's going to need one. She left, taking her folder and her dog, and the last of Tyler's illusions that this would just blow over. Josh had talked. Josh had taken the deal. Tyler would face everything alone. His mother was sobbing openly now. His father was already on the phone with Gerald, talking about appeals and mitigating circumstances and damage control. And Tyler sat there, understanding for the first time that actions had consequences, that cruelty left marks, that the power he'd felt standing over Marcus was really just weakness pretending to be strength. In another conference room, Kaylee Morrison was learning the same lesson as her parents listened to police explain how live-streaming assault made her an accomplice. In a third room, Josh Martinez was giving detailed testimony about every incident of bullying, every time Tyler had targeted Marcus, every way the harassment had escalated over weeks. And in the courtyard where it had all started, Marcus Chen sat with his mother and sister and a police officer who knew sign language, surrounded by dogs trained to protect people, holding broken pieces of technology that would be replaced, but still represented something shattered that would take longer to fix. The video was gone from social media, but it lived forever in police evidence files and in the minds of everyone who'd watched it. The viral moments Tyler had wanted had arrived, but not the way he'd imagined. Justice was coming. Slowly, imperfectly, but inevitably. And 3 students who thought they were untouchable were learning that nobody was. 3 weeks later, Marcus sat in the auditorium at Jefferson Middle School, his brand new hearing aids transmitting the nervous shuffle of 200 students finding their seats. The devices were state-of-the-art, far better than his destroyed ones, paid for by a fundraiser that had exploded online after the video went viral for the second time, not as entertainment, but as a rallying cry for change. Dr. Sarah Chen sat on his right, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. Nina was on his left, and Officer Dawson stood near the stage with Duke, there both as security and as support. Marcus's hands trembled in his lap as Principal Martinez approached the microphone. "Thank you all for gathering this morning," Martinez began, her voice carrying through the auditorium sound system directly into Marcus's new hearing aids. "We're here because something happened at our school that should never happen anywhere. We failed one of our students, and today we begin the process of making sure it never happens again." Marcus felt his mother's hand tighten on his shoulder. The school board had spent 3 weeks in emergency sessions, facing threats of lawsuits, federal investigations into ADA compliance, and media attention that had put Jefferson Middle on the national news. Martinez herself had nearly been fired, saved only by her immediate cooperation with the police investigation and her commitment to systemic reform. "Today, Marcus Chen is going to speak to all of you," Martinez continued, "not because he owes us his story, but because he's chosen to share it. I want everyone to listen, really listen, to what he has to say." Marcus stood on shaking legs, Nina rising with him for support. Officer Dawson had offered to interpret, but Marcus had insisted on using the new voice-to-text system projected on the screen behind him, wanting students to hear his actual voice, even if it sounded different from theirs. He walked to the stage, his new hearing aids picking up whispers that cut through him like knives. "That's the deaf kid from the video. I heard Tyler got arrested. My mom said this is going to cost the school millions." Marcus reached the microphone, and the auditorium fell silent. He could see faces in the crowd, some curious, some sympathetic, some hostile. He spotted Tyler's friends from the football team sitting together, their expressions hard and resentful. He saw Kaylee's former followers, girls who'd spent the last 3 weeks dealing with the fallout of associating with someone now infamous for cruelty. His hands moved through sign language as he spoke, Officer Dawson standing beside him to help any students who wanted to follow along. "My name is Marcus Chen," he began, his voice careful and measured in the way deaf speakers often sounded. 3 weeks ago, 3 students cornered me in the courtyard and destroyed my hearing aids while live streaming it. You've probably seen the video. A lot of you shared it, commented on it, or laughed at it. The text appeared on the screen behind him, giving visual reinforcement to his words. Some students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "I'm not here to make you feel guilty," Marcus continued, though his hands signed something slightly different. He was here because the school board required it, because lawyers said his testimony mattered, because someone decided his trauma should be educational. "I'm here to help you understand what it's like to be deaf in a hearing world, and what happened when people decided I didn't belong in that world." He paused, gathering courage, his mother's presence in the front row anchoring him. "I wasn't always deaf. I lost my hearing when I was 7 years old from bacterial meningitis. Before that, I was a musician. I played piano and violin. I had perfect pitch. Music was everything to me." His voice cracked slightly, the emotion disrupting his careful speech patterns. "When I woke up in the hospital and couldn't hear my mother's voice anymore, couldn't hear music, couldn't hear anything, I thought my life was over." Nina was crying silently in her seat, remembering those awful months. The little brother who'd stopped smiling for nearly a year. "But I learned to adapt. I learned sign language. I got hearing aids that helped me access sound again, even though it's not the same as natural hearing. I learned to read lips. I worked with speech therapists so I could still use my voice even though I can't hear myself speak." Marcus looked directly at a group of 8th graders who'd been friends with Tyler. "I worked harder than most of you can imagine just to do things you take for granted. Following conversations, knowing when someone's behind you, hearing announcements, participating in class discussions." His hands moved faster through sign language, his frustration bleeding through. "And despite all that work, some people decided I didn't deserve to be here. They decided my disability made me less human, less worthy of respect, less deserving of basic kindness. They decided mocking me would be entertaining content for social media." The auditorium was dead silent now, the weight of collective shame settling over students who'd laughed at the video, who'd shared it, who'd participated even passively in Marcus's humiliation. When Tyler crushed my hearing aid, he didn't just break expensive technology. He cut me off from the world. He isolated me completely, made me helpless, made me terrified. Marcus's voice rose, becoming less controlled but more powerful. "And he did it because he could. Because I was smaller, younger, disabled, and he thought that made me an acceptable target." Dr. Sarah Chen stood up from her seat, moving toward the stage, sensing her son was approaching his breaking point. But Marcus held up a hand, asking her to wait. "But here's what Tyler didn't understand," Marcus said, his hands signing with fierce determination. "Being deaf doesn't make me weak. It makes me observant. It makes me attentive. It makes me notice things hearing people miss because they rely too much on sound and not enough on everything else." He pulled out his phone and held it up. "I noticed that Josh Martinez was being bullied by Tyler last year. I noticed that Tyler gets panic attacks before big games because his father screams at him about performance. I noticed that Kaylee Morrison's hands shake when she checks her phone because she's terrified of losing followers. I noticed all of it because I watch people instead of just hearing them." The auditorium erupted in whispers. Tyler's friends looked shocked. Kaylee's former crew exchanged nervous glances. Marcus had just exposed truths that explained everything, while excusing nothing. "I'm not saying this to hurt them," Marcus continued, his voice softening. "I'm saying it so you understand that everyone carries something hard. Tyler's father treats him the way Tyler treated me, like he's never good enough, like weakness deserves punishment. Josh was scared of becoming Tyler's next target, so he joined in attacking someone else. Kaylee built her entire identity on social media validation, and she thought cruelty would get her more attention than kindness. Officer Dawson shifted beside Marcus, impressed by the 13-year-old's insight and empathy after everything he'd endured. They hurt me badly. They traumatized me. But they're also kids who are hurting, who made terrible choices, and who now have to face consequences. Marcus looked directly at the camera in the back of the auditorium, knowing this assembly was being recorded per school board requirements. I want those consequences to mean something. I want them to change, to get help, to become better people. Because revenge doesn't fix anything. It just creates more hurt. Sarah had reached the stage steps, tears streaming down her face as she listened to her son demonstrate more maturity and grace than most adults could manage. The school is implementing new policies, Marcus continued. Mandatory disability awareness training, more counselors, better supervision, anti-bullying programs with real teeth, anonymous reporting systems. These things matter, and they'll help other students who might become targets. He paused, his next words coming slower, weighted with meaning. But policies only work if the people here decide to be better. If you see someone being bullied and you walk past, you're part of the problem. If you share a video of someone's worst moment for entertainment, you're part of the problem. If you laugh when someone's mocked for being different, you're part of the problem. His hands moved through sign language that Officer Dawson translated aloud. We all have choices. Tyler chose cruelty. Josh chose cowardice. Kaylee chose vanity. But every single one of you watching that video also made a choice. To engage or ignore. To defend or attack. To be part of the solution or part of the violence. A girl in the third row raised her hand tentatively. Principal Martinez looked uncertain about allowing questions, but Marcus nodded. What happened to them? To Tyler and the others? Marcus's jaw tightened. Tyler's been charged with assault and destruction of property. He's in alternative school and mandatory therapy. His case might go to juvenile court. Josh cooperated with the investigation. He's on probation and doing community service at a deaf school, learning sign language. Kaylee lost her social media platforms, got expelled, and she's in a different school district now. Another hand went up, a boy from Tyler's football team. Do you think Tyler should go to jail? I think Tyler should get help, Marcus said carefully. Real help, not just punishment. Because punishment without change just creates angry people who hurt others as soon as they get the chance. But he also needs to understand that actions have consequences, that he can't treat people like garbage and expect no response. Officer Dawson's radio crackled softly, and he glanced at it before leaning toward Marcus to whisper something. Marcus nodded and returned to the microphone. There's someone else who wants to speak, Marcus said, his voice uncertain. Josh Martinez asked if he could apologize to me publicly. I said yes, because I think accountability matters. But if any of you aren't ready to hear it, you can leave. Nobody left. The auditorium remained packed as Josh Martinez walked from a side door, accompanied by his parents and a counselor. He looked smaller than he had 3 weeks ago, his shoulders hunched, his eyes red-rimmed from obvious crying. Josh approached the microphone, standing several feet from Marcus, respecting his space. When he spoke, his voice shook. I don't deserve to be on this stage. I don't deserve Marcus's forgiveness or his kindness. 3 weeks ago, I helped Tyler torture him because I was scared of being Tyler's next victim. I held Marcus's communication tablet. I filmed him crying. I laughed at his pain. Josh's voice broke. I was a coward who protected myself by hurting someone who never did anything to me. His mother was crying in the front row, her hand covering her mouth. His father sat rigid, staring at his son with an expression caught between disappointment and desperate love. I've spent the last 3 weeks volunteering at Valley Deaf School, learning sign language and trying to understand what I did. Josh continued. The kids there are amazing, funny, smart, talented, just like kids anywhere. They're just deaf. That's it. That's the only difference. And I helped destroy someone's medical equipment because of that difference? He turned to Marcus directly, his hands moving through clumsy sign language he'd obviously been practicing. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know words don't fix anything, but I'm sorry for hurting you, for being part of the worst day of your life, for not being brave enough to stop it. Marcus watched Josh's hands form the signs, imperfect but sincere, and something in his chest loosened slightly. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the beginning of possibility. Marcus's hands moved through response. I accept your apology. That doesn't mean I trust you or that we're friends. But I believe you're trying to change, and that matters. Officer Dawson translated for the auditorium, and several students applauded before catching themselves, unsure if applause was appropriate for an apology. Josh nodded, tears streaming down his face, and walked off the stage with his parents. As he passed, Marcus caught a glimpse of the community service log Josh carried. Over 100 hours already completed at Valley Deaf School, teaching hearing students basic sign language, helping with after-school programs, trying to become someone better than the person who'd hurt Marcus. Principal Martinez returned to the microphone. We have one more announcement. The school board has established the Marcus Chen Scholarship Fund for students with disabilities who are pursuing education in mainstream schools. The fund will cover assistive technology, tutoring, and other accommodations that insurance doesn't cover. Sarah stood fully now, moving to Marcus's side, her hand finding his. The scholarship was her idea, fought for in 3 contentious school board meetings. A way to turn Marcus's trauma into systemic change that would help other kids. Additionally, Martinez continued, we're partnering with local disability advocacy groups to train all staff in disability awareness and accommodation. Officer Dawson will be teaching monthly ASL classes for students and staff. And we're implementing a peer support program where students with disabilities can connect with each other and allies. The changes were comprehensive, born from legal necessity, but also from genuine recognition of failure. Jefferson Middle had failed Marcus spectacularly, publicly, and the response had to match the scope of that failure. As the assembly ended and students filed out, several approached Marcus, some to apologize for laughing at the video, some to ask how to learn sign language, some to share their own experiences with bullying or disability. Nina stood guard beside her brother, screening the students who seemed sincere from those who seemed to want proximity to someone suddenly famous. A girl with thick glasses and a speech impediment approached shyly. Thank you for talking about this. People make fun of how I talk all the time, and nobody ever does anything about it. Hearing you say it matters made me feel less alone. Marcus's hands signed a response that Dawson translated. You're not alone, and if anyone bothers you, tell me. We'll handle it together. The girl smiled, relief flooding her face, and walked away looking less hunched, less invisible. Officer Dawson crouched down beside Marcus. You did good up there, kid. Really good. That took guts. My hands were shaking the whole time, Marcus admitted, his signs small and tight. Courage isn't not being scared. It's being scared and doing it anyway. Your dad would be proud. Dawson paused. Speaking of which, he lands at the airport in 3 hours. Your mom's picking him up. Marcus's face lit up with the first genuine joy he'd shown in weeks. His father's emergency leave had been approved. 2 weeks to be home with his family, to hold his son, to attend the court hearings and meetings and therapy sessions that had filled Marcus's calendar. Sarah squeezed Marcus's shoulder. Let's get out of here. We've done enough for today. They walked out of the auditorium together, mother, son, daughter, police officer, and therapy dog, through hallways that felt different now, less threatening, more like a place where Marcus might actually belong. Students parted to let them through, some offering hesitant smiles, some looking away guiltily, some watching Marcus with new understanding. In the parking lot, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from James. Wheels down in 2 hours. Can't wait to hold my son. Tell him I love him. Sarah showed Marcus the text, and he smiled. A real smile that reached his eyes for the first time since the courtyard incident. But as they approached Sarah's car, a woman stepped out from behind a van, her expression desperate and pleading. Mrs. Brennan, Tyler's mother, holding an envelope with Marcus's name written across it. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Please, just read it. It's from Tyler." His therapist says writing it was part of his treatment, but he needs to know if you'll read it. Sarah stepped between Marcus and Mrs. Brennan, her physician composure hardening into protective fury. "Your son traumatized mine. You can't be here. I know. I know what he did was unforgivable." Mrs. Brennan's hands shook as she held out the envelope. "But he's in therapy 4 days a week now. They found out his father, my husband, has been verbally abusive for years. We're separated." Tyler's finally talking about things he's been holding in since he was little. He's not okay, but he's trying to get better. Marcus reached past his mother and took the envelope. Sarah made a sound of protest, but Marcus's hands moved firmly through sign language. "I want to read it. That doesn't mean I forgive him, but I want to know what he has to say." Mrs. Brennan's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. That's more grace than we deserve." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Your speech in there." Tyler watched it on the recording his therapist showed him. He cried for an hour afterward. He's starting to understand what he did, what he really did. It's destroying him. But maybe that's what needs to happen before he can rebuild into someone better. She walked away, leaving Marcus holding the envelope, and Sarah looking torn between protecting her son from more pain and respecting his choice to engage with his own healing process. "We don't have to read it now," Nina said. "We can read it at home, or not at all. Or you can throw it away." Marcus held the envelope carefully, feeling its weight, considering the words inside written by someone who'd hurt him so badly. Words that might be genuine, or might be performative, that might offer real remorse, or just legal strategy disguised as apology. "I'll read it when Dad gets home," Marcus decided, his hands signing with careful thought. "I want him there when I do." They drove away from Jefferson Middle as the afternoon sun slanted across the parking lot, leaving behind a school that was learning to be better, students who were beginning to understand accountability, and systems that were slowly, imperfectly, starting to protect vulnerable kids instead of failing them. The video that had started everything was still out there somewhere, preserved in police files and news archives and the memory of everyone who'd seen it. But it was being joined by other videos now, Marcus's assembly speech, news segments about disability rights, interviews with advocacy groups, documentaries about bullying and reform. One moment of cruelty was transforming into a movement for change, and Marcus Chen was at the center of it. Not as a victim, but as a voice, speaking truth about vulnerability and strength, about consequences and redemption, about the power of choosing compassion over cruelty. The letter in his lap felt heavy with possibility. Possibility for Tyler's redemption, from Marcus's healing, for forgiveness that didn't excuse, but acknowledged the complexity of hurt people, hurting people. Justice had come, swift and comprehensive. Now came the harder work of transformation, of ensuring that what happens to Marcus never happened to another kid, of building a world where disability wasn't a target, and difference wasn't a weakness, and every child could be safe being exactly who they were. The work was just beginning, but for the first time in 3 weeks, Marcus felt like maybe, just maybe, it was work that would matter. 6 months had passed since the courtyard incident, and Marcus stood at the arrivals gate at the airport, holding a handmade sign that read, "Welcome home, Dad," in careful block letters. Nina stood beside him, recording on her phone. capturing the moment their father would see them for the first time since his emergency leave ended 3 months ago. Sarah kept checking her watch, her excitement barely contained beneath her physician's composure. Lieutenant Commander James Chen appeared through the security doors in his dress uniform, his duffel bag slung over one shoulder, and his eyes immediately found his family. Marcus felt his father's gaze lock onto him, saw the emotion crack through military bearing, and then James was moving fast, closing the distance in long strides. He dropped to his knees in front of Marcus, pulling his son into an embrace that lifted the 13-year-old off his feet. Marcus felt the vibration of his father's voice through his chest, even before his hearing aids picked up the words. "I missed you so much, son. So damn much." Marcus's hands signed against his father's back. "I missed you too. Every day." James pulled back, his hands moving through sign language as he spoke aloud, seamlessly bilingual in the way he'd become over 6 years of Marcus's deafness. "Let me look at you. You've grown. You're taller." 2 inches since you left," Marcus signed back, grinning. "Mom measured me last week." James stood, pulling Sarah and Nina into the embrace, the 4 of them creating a tight circle in the middle of the busy airport terminal. Other travelers moved around them, some smiling at the obvious military homecoming, some taking photos of the reunion that looked like something from a movie. When they finally separated, James kept one hand on Marcus's shoulder, as if confirming his son was real and whole and standing in front of him. "Tell me everything. I want to hear all of it. School, the new hearing aids, how Duke is doing, everything." They walked toward baggage claim, Marcus's hands flying through sign language as he caught his father up on 6 months compressed into rapid-fire updates. The new hearing aids worked better than the old ones, transmitting directly to his phone and computer. Officer Dawson's ASL classes had 53 students now, including 3 teachers and the vice principal. Duke visited Marcus's classroom twice a week as part of the therapy canine program that had expanded school-wide. "And Tyler?" James asked carefully as they reached his luggage. "How's that situation?" Marcus's hands slowed. "It's complicated." They drove home through familiar streets, Sarah at the wheel, Nina in the passenger seat, live streaming the homecoming for family and friends who couldn't be there. In the back seat, Marcus sat pressed against his father's side, feeling anchored by his presence in a way he hadn't realized he'd been drifting without. "I read Tyler's letter," Marcus signed when his father asked again about the situation. 3 times. It was 7 pages, handwritten. And it was real, not lawyer-written or therapy scripted, just real. "What did it say?" James's signs were patient, giving Marcus space to process. That he was sorry. That he understood what he did now, not just legally but humanly. That he's in therapy dealing with abuse from his father that's been happening since he was 8. That his father told him weakness was unforgivable, so he found someone weaker to destroy before anyone destroyed him. Marcus paused, his hands hesitating before continuing. That he thinks about me every day and wishes he could undo it, but knows he can't. So instead he's trying to become someone who would never do it again. James absorbed this silently as Sarah pulled into their driveway. The house looked exactly the same, but everything felt different with their father home. The family finally complete again, after months of being fractured by distance and trauma. Inside, Marcus led his father to the living room, where a corkboard hung on the wall, covered with photos and articles and documents that told the story of the last 6 months. The assembly speech, news coverage of the disability rights movement that had sparked from Marcus's case. Photos of Josh Martinez teaching sign language to elementary school kids at Valley Deaf School. A printed screenshot of Kaylee Morrison's private apology letter sent through lawyers, expressing remorse that felt genuine beneath legal caution. And in the center, pinned carefully, was Tyler Brennan's 7-page letter, every word visible, a testament to accountability and the long, hard road of change. James read the letter slowly, his jaw working as he processed Tyler's words, the raw honesty of a 14-year-old trying to understand his own capacity for cruelty. When he finished, his hands moved through sign language, heavy with emotion. "This doesn't excuse what he did to you." "I know," Marcus signed back. "But it explains some of it. And that matters for understanding, even if it doesn't change consequences." That's what my therapist says, too. Marcus had been seeing Dr. Patricia Morrison, a psychologist who specialized in trauma and worked with deaf clients twice a week since the incident. The sessions helped him process not just what happened, but his complicated feelings about justice and forgiveness and moving forward. Sarah appeared in the doorway. "Dinner's ready, and we have guests. Officer Dawson and his daughter Grace are joining us. I thought you'd want to meet the people who helped Marcus." 20 minutes later, Officer Ray Dawson sat at their dining table with his 14-year-old daughter Grace, whose hands moved through sign language with the native fluency of someone who'd been deaf since birth. Duke lay under the table, his head resting on Marcus's feet, the therapy dog having formed an unbreakable bond with the boy he'd comforted in the courtyard. Grace and Marcus signed to each other rapidly, comparing experiences with mainstream versus deaf schools, trading stories about awkward hearing aid moments, and the frustration of lip-reading people who mumbled. James watched them with an expression that made Sarah reach over and squeeze his hand. "It's good for him to have deaf friends," she signed to her husband, including Officer Dawson in the conversation. "Grace has been texting Marcus almost daily. She gets things that hearing people can't fully understand. Like how exhausting it is to constantly translate between worlds," Grace signed, her hands moving with emphatic frustration. "Hearing people don't realize that being deaf in a hearing world means your brain is working overtime every single moment just to keep up with conversations that come naturally to them." Marcus nodded vigorously. "Exactly. And then they act like asking them to repeat themselves is this huge burden. But I'm the one doing all the real work." Officer Dawson smiled at his daughter. "She's taught me more about ableism than any textbook ever could, just by being herself and calling me out when I make assumptions." James's hands moved through a question directed at Dawson. "Tell me about that day, the courtyard, what you saw." Dawson's expression sobered. "I saw a kid who'd been systematically isolated and then assaulted by peers who thought his disability made him less human. I saw broken technology that was his connection to sound. I saw trauma that looked exactly like what my daughter experiences when people treat her as less than because she's deaf." He paused. "And I saw a kid with more strength than most adults I know, holding himself together when he had every right to fall apart." Marcus felt his face heat with embarrassment and pride in equal measure. Grace elbowed him gently, her signs teasing. "You're famous in the deaf community now. My friends at deaf school all know your name. You're like a hero." "I'm not a hero," Marcus signed back firmly. "I'm just a kid who got hurt and tried to make something good come from something bad." "That's exactly what makes you a hero," Grace countered. "Heroes aren't people who don't get hurt. They're people who get hurt and then help others anyway." After dinner, Marcus led his father upstairs to his room where another corkboard hung, this one more private, more personal. Photos of Marcus before meningitis, playing violin at a recital, grinning with piano keys behind him. Photos from the hospital, small and fragile with tubes and monitors. Photos from years of speech therapy, frustration and determination visible in his young face. And newer photos. Marcus at the school assembly. Marcus with Duke. Marcus teaching basic sign language to Officer Dawson's ASL class. "I've been thinking about music again," Marcus signed, the admission coming slowly, like pulling something tender from a protected space. "Not playing instruments the way I used to. I can't hear music the same way anymore. But I can feel vibrations, And Dr. Morrison says some deaf musicians learn to experience music through touch and sight and memory. James sat on Marcus's bed, his hands moving through careful signs. What do you want to try? Piano. I remember how it feels under my fingers, how different notes vibrate differently. Mom found a teacher who works with deaf students, using visual cues and vibration feedback. Marcus's signs gained confidence. I'll never play like I did before, but maybe I can play differently. Maybe I can create something new instead of mourning what I lost. When do you start? Next week. I'm terrified. Marcus's hands trembled slightly on the admission. What if I'm not good at it anymore? What if I've lost that part of myself completely? James pulled Marcus down to sit beside him, his arm wrapping around his son's shoulders. Then you'll have tried, and trying matters more than succeeding. But I don't think you've lost anything, Marcus. I think you've transformed it. The musician you were at 6 is gone, yes, but the musician you're becoming at 13 might be even more remarkable, because you'll have fought harder to get there. They sat in comfortable silence, father and son, both processing 6 months of change and trauma and growth that had reshaped their family in ways still being discovered. Finally, James's hands moved through a question Marcus had been waiting for. Do you want to see Tyler? His therapist reached out through Captain Torres. Tyler's asking if you'd be willing to meet him in a supervised restorative justice session. You can say no. You have every right to never see him again. Marcus's chest tightened. He'd known this was coming, had discussed it endlessly with Dr. Morrison, had weighed the possibilities and risks. What do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever feels right for your healing, not for Tyler's redemption. This isn't about him deserving forgiveness. It's about you finding peace. James's signs were firm. If seeing him will help you process what happened, if confronting him will give you closure, then we'll arrange it. But if it will just reopen wounds, or feel like you're being forced to perform forgiveness you don't feel, then we say no. Marcus thought about Tyler's letter, about the raw honesty of someone finally facing what they'd done, about the therapist's reports that Captain Torres had shared showing real progress in Tyler's treatment, about Josh Martinez's visible transformation from Bullies accomplice to deaf school volunteer. He thought about Kaylee Morrison's struggle in her new school, isolated and learning through suffering what she'd inflicted on others. I want to meet him, Marcus signed finally, not to forgive him. I'm not ready for that, and I might never be. But to see him face what he did, to hear him say it to my face, not just in a letter, to know that he understands he hurt a real person, not just some abstract victim. James nodded slowly. Then we'll set it up, but on your terms, in a safe space, with Dr. Morrison and Captain Torres present. And if at any point you want to leave, we leave. No questions, no pressure. 2 weeks later, Marcus sat in a conference room at the County Restorative Justice Center, his hands clenched in his lap, despite Dr. Morrison's calming presence beside him. Sarah and James sat behind him, a wall of parental protection. Officer Dawson stood near the door with Duke, the therapy dog included specifically to help Marcus feel secure. Tyler Brennan entered with his mother and his therapist, Dr. Richard Coleman, who specialized in adolescent behavioral disorders and trauma. Tyler looked different, thinner, his athletic swagger gone, replaced by something smaller and more uncertain. His eyes met Marcus's and immediately dropped, shame visible in every line of his body. Dr. Coleman spoke first, his voice gentle but firm. Thank you all for being here. This session is about accountability and healing. Tyler has asked for this meeting because he wants to take responsibility for his actions directly to Marcus. Marcus has agreed because he wants to speak his truth to Tyler. This is not about forced forgiveness. This is about honest communication. Tyler's hands shook as he lifted them, then dropped them again. He took a breath and spoke, his voice cracking. "Marcus, I don't know how to start except to say, I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know words don't fix what I did to you. But I need you to hear from me that I was wrong. Completely, absolutely wrong." Marcus's hands moved through sign language that Dr. Morrison voiced aloud. "Why did you do it?" Tyler's face crumpled. "Because I was angry at my father, and taking it out on someone who couldn't fight back. Because hurting you made me feel powerful when I felt powerless at home. Because I'm a coward who targeted someone vulnerable instead of standing up to the person who was actually hurting me." "Did you know those things when you were crushing my hearing aid?" Marcus's signs were sharp, accusatory. "No, I didn't think about you as a person at all. You were just a target, a thing I could hurt to make myself feel better." Tyler's voice broke completely. "And that's the worst part. I dehumanized you so completely that I could torture you and feel nothing except satisfaction." Marcus's next signs came fast and angry, 6 months of contained rage finally surfacing. "You made me afraid to go to school. You made me doubt that I deserved to be in mainstream education. You destroyed technology my mother worked overtime to afford. You humiliated me in front of thousands of people. You made me feel like being deaf was something shameful instead of just different." Tyler absorbed each statement like physical blows, tears streaming down his face. I know all of that now. I think about what I did every single day. It haunts me. I see your face, the way you looked when I broke your hearing aid, and I can't unsee it." "Good," Marcus signed viciously. "You should see it. You should remember it. You should carry it with you so you never forget what you're capable of when you choose cruelty over kindness." Mrs. Brennan made a small sound of distress, but Tyler held up a hand, stopping her intervention. "He's right, Mom. I should remember. I need to remember so I never become that person again." Marcus's hands trembled as he signed his next question. "Are you only sorry because you got caught? Because there were consequences? Or would you be sorry even if the video never went viral and the police never showed up?" The question hung in the air like a challenge, and Tyler visibly struggled with it. Dr. Coleman leaned forward slightly, encouraging honesty over comfort. "I don't know," Tyler finally admitted. "I want to say I would have realized how wrong it was and felt guilty on my own. But honestly, I probably would have just moved on to the next thing, convinced myself it wasn't that bad, blamed you for being too sensitive. The consequences forced me to actually look at what I did. The therapy forced me to understand why I did it. Without those external forces, I probably wouldn't have changed. The brutal honesty was more valuable than any false claim of natural conscience would have been." Marcus's hands moved through grudging acknowledgement. "At least you're not lying about it." "I'm done lying. To myself, to my therapist, to anyone." Tyler wiped his face roughly. "I was abused by my father, and instead of getting help, I became an abuser. That's the truth. And now I'm trying to break that cycle, but it's hard. Some days I still have the same angry thoughts, the same urge to hurt someone to feel powerful. The difference is, now I recognize those thoughts, and I talk about them in therapy instead of acting on them." James Chen spoke for the first time, his voice hard. "What are you doing to make amends beyond apologizing?" Tyler's mother answered, "We've paid full restitution for the hearing aids. Tyler's community service includes teaching anti-bullying workshops to middle school students, sharing his story as a cautionary tale. He volunteers at the deaf school Josh Martinez introduced him to. Though he's not allowed direct contact with students, he does maintenance work, helping make the facility accessible. And he's in intensive therapy 4 times a week, working on anger management and empathy development. I'm also meeting with a restorative justice coordinator monthly, Tyler added, trying to understand the ripple effects of what I did. How it didn't just hurt Marcus, but his family, other deaf students who saw the video and felt unsafe, everyone who watched and wondered if they'd be next. Marcus studied Tyler's face, looking for signs of performance or manipulation, but finding only exhausted sincerity. This wasn't the smirking bully from the courtyard. This was someone who'd been broken down and was struggling to rebuild into something better. I don't forgive you, Marcus signed bluntly. I might never forgive you. What you did hurt too much, changed too much of my life. I understand, Tyler said. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see you as human now. I see what I did to a real person, with feelings and a family and a future. And I'm sorry I didn't see that before. Dr. Morrison spoke gently. Marcus, is there anything else you want to say to Tyler? Marcus's hands moved through careful consideration before signing his final statement. I hope you actually change. Not for my sake, but for every person you might hurt if you don't. I hope the therapy works, and you break the cycle, and you become someone who protects vulnerable people instead of targeting them. I hope you remember this meeting and my face and what you did for the rest of your life, and I hope it makes you better instead of just making you guilty. Tyler nodded, his throat working as he tried to control his emotions. I will. I promise I will. And Marcus, he paused, gathering courage. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. You didn't have to face me. The fact that you did shows more strength than I've ever had. The session ended shortly after, both boys emotionally exhausted, both families processing different aspects of the same trauma. As they left the Restorative Justice Center, Sarah pulled Marcus into a tight embrace. I'm so proud of you. That took incredible courage. Marcus's hands signed against her back. I needed to see him. To know he's not a monster, just a kid who did monstrous things. Somehow that makes it both better and worse. That's the complexity of real life, James signed. People aren't all good or all bad. They're messy and complicated, and sometimes the people who hurt us are also hurt themselves. Understanding that doesn't excuse them, but it helps us move forward without carrying their darkness inside us. 3 months later, Marcus stood on the stage at the Regional Performing Arts Center, his fingers resting lightly on piano keys, his new teacher, Mrs. Helena Rodriguez, standing beside him. The auditorium was packed. His family, Officer Dawson and Grace, students from his ASL class, teachers from Jefferson Middle, advocates from disability rights organizations, and even Josh Martinez with his parents, all there to watch Marcus's first public performance since losing his hearing 6 years ago. His hands trembled as they found the opening position, muscle memory and new adaptation combining in uncertain harmony. He'd chosen a simple piece, something he'd loved before meningitis, rearranged for a deaf musician who experienced music through vibration and visual timing rather than traditional hearing. Marcus closed his eyes and began to play. The notes flowed from his fingers, imperfect and halting at first, then gaining confidence as his body remembered what his ears could no longer guide. He felt the vibrations through the piano bench, through his chest, through the floor beneath his feet. He watched Mrs. Rodriguez's hands conducting beside him, visual cues replacing auditory ones. He felt the music not as sound, but as sensation, as emotion, as proof that what had been lost could be transformed into something different, but still beautiful. When the final note vibrated through his fingertips, the auditorium erupted in applause that Marcus experienced as vibration through the stage, through the air, through the standing ovation of 200 people celebrating not just a performance, but a victory over trauma, over loss, over the cruelty that had tried to silence him. James stood with tears streaming down his face, his hands signing "I love you" over and over. Sarah clutched Nina's hand, both of them crying openly. Grace was on her feet, applauding with exaggerated movements, so Marcus could see her support. Officer Dawson held Duke's lead with one hand and wiped his eyes with the other. Marcus stood and bowed, his new hearing aids transmitting the applause as distorted thunder, his eyes finding his family in the crowd. He'd survived meningitis and the loss of his hearing. He'd survived brutal bullying and public humiliation. He'd survived having his medical equipment destroyed and his humanity questioned. And now he stood on stage playing music again, different from before, but no less valid, no less meaningful. The story that began with a crushed hearing aid and a viral video of cruelty had become a story about resilience, about accountability, about the long, difficult work of justice and healing. Tyler Brennan was still in therapy, still doing community service, still trying to become someone better than the person who'd hurt Marcus. Josh Martinez was teaching sign language to elementary students and considering a career in special education. Kaylee Morrison was slowly rebuilding her identity around substance instead of social media vanity. And Marcus Chen was playing piano again, had started a disability advocacy club at school, had become a voice for vulnerable students everywhere, had transformed his trauma into purpose and his suffering into strength that helped others. He'd learned that being deaf didn't make him weak or lesser or unworthy. It made him uniquely positioned to understand marginalization, to fight for inclusion, to speak truth about the cost of cruelty and the power of compassion. The applause continued as Marcus left the stage, his family surrounding him immediately, their pride and love a protective cocoon against a world that hadn't always been kind. But the world was learning, slowly and imperfectly, that disability wasn't weakness, that difference wasn't deficiency, that every person deserved dignity, regardless of how their body or brain worked. Marcus had been knocked down, broken, humiliated, and traumatized, but he had risen from that courtyard floor surrounded by people who protected him, by systems that held his attackers accountable, by a community that chose to be better. And in rising, he had lifted others with him, had changed policies and hearts and minds, had proven that one person's courage could ripple outward into transformation. The bullies had filmed him to mock his vulnerability, but the world had watched and learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was the raw material of human connection, the foundation of empathy, the birthplace of change. They'd tried to silence him by destroying his hearing aids, but Marcus had found his voice anyway, in sign language and advocacy and music that transcended traditional sound, in truth-telling that forced people to confront their complicity and cruelty, in simply existing loudly and proudly as his authentic deaf self in a world built for hearing people. Justice had come to Marcus Chen, not just through police and courts and consequences for his attackers, but through his own refusal to be diminished, through his insistence that he deserved space and respect and the right to communicate in whatever language worked for him, through his transformation of personal trauma into collective progress that would protect countless other vulnerable students for years to come. The viral video that was meant to destroy him had instead revealed his unbreakable strength. And in that revelation, Marcus had become exactly what Tyler Brennan feared most. Someone more powerful than cruelty. Someone who turned suffering into purpose. Someone who proved that the vulnerable could be mighty and the silent could shake the world.